Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And I will have an amendment to this amendment in just a moment to clarify something, but I'd like to lay out the amendment first. So last session, the legislature made a commitment to educators in House Bill 3 by increasing teacher salaries across the state. Teachers, librarians, nurses, counselors, educational aides, custodial workers, and other full-time staff benefited from pay increases. The data now shows average between $3,800 and $5,200. It was a great accomplishment for this House that led on that. Although House Bill 3 funded these salary increases through the current biennium, there is no requirement to maintain these new salaries beyond this fiscal year. This amendment would protect those well-deserved pay raises that teachers and full-time support staff received. Now, it's important to point out that even with this wage increase, Texas continues to lag behind other states, and we're currently ranked 39th in teacher pay. And in the past year, you all know we've never asked educators to do more. When the pandemic hit last year, classrooms became Zooms, desks became couches, and the school halls became the walls of our living rooms. The world turned upside down for millions of Texas kids in many ways, except for one thing. Their teachers, as always, were their caretakers and put their interests first. The teachers and staff of our public schools continue to be rocks for our families and our communities, and we owe them our most sincere gratitude. This amendment keeps that promise to our educators, and I do have an amendment to the amendment that will tighten the language on this.
Following amendment, the clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment by Turner of Tarrant.
Chair recognizes Mr. Turner to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this amendment to the amendment changes the word compensation to salaries in the amendment and puts some guardrails to ensure there is no unfunded mandate for our school districts. Changing compensation to salaries because some teachers and other staff may have received one-time bonuses and we're not trying to lock in that amount necessarily, just the salary amount. So that's what the amendment to the amendment does, and I move passage.
Mr. Turner sends up an amendment to the amendment. The amendment is acceptable to the author. The objection to adoption of the amendment. The chair hears none. The amendment is adopted. Chair recognizes Mr. Huberty to speak on the amendment as amended.
Thank you, members. Chairman Turner came and talked to me about this. Obviously, the impact would be could be significant to school districts related to that. He cleaned it up and changed it from compensation to salary. What I'd like to be able to do is we have this discussion with the Senate as we move forward. So we're going to put this in for right now with the commitment that we're going to continue to work on it. You know, we fought hard to make sure that our teachers got pay increases. And I will talk about some concerns some of you have had about compensation and things of that nature, specifically with teachers as we go forward. So. Yeah. So one of the issues, if the economy drops, obviously we're going to have a situation where, you know, what do you do? How do we deal with that? Well, I think that becomes that point in time. But we made a commitment and a promise to our teachers last year. I want to keep that. I think we all want to keep that as we go forward. But I will specifically, when I close on the bill, I'm going to talk about fund balances because everybody's come talking to me about that, by the way, which is not in the bill. But I will talk about that. But at this point, I'm going to accept this and we'll continue to work on it.
Chair recognizes Mr. Turner to close on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank Representative Huberty for his leadership on school finance reform, this ongoing effort now for 3 sessions, and thank him for working with me on this amendment. This is the right thing to do for our teachers. I move passage, move adoption.
The question occurs on adoption of the amendment as amended.
Yeah.
A record of vote has been requested by Mr. Schaefer. The clerk will ring the bell. Turner Tarrant voting aye, Mr. Van Dever voting aye, Mr. Destel voting aye, Mr. Huberty voting aye, Mr. Wilson voting aye, Mr. Bella Kaufman voting aye, Mr. King of Hemphill voting aye, Mr. Bernal voting aye, Mr. Zwiener voting aye, Mr. Biederman voting aye, Mr. Bales voting aye. You do have buttons at your desk, members. All members voting. There being 97 ayes, 49 nays, the amendment as amended is adopted.